Chucky, the Puppet Master, Pinocchio. All right, maybe not Pinocchio, but I don't know about y'all, but that scene when he turns into a donkey as a child, that scarred me. Where was I? Oh, yes. And Annabelle. Scary possessed demon dolls are nothing new in horror, but why are we as humans so damn put off by them? Is it that they're constantly looking at us no matter what position we're at in the room? Is it that they're so small and thusly like, to me, bugs and snakes and spiders and are ready to strike at you at any time, unbeknownst to you? Is it simply the uncanny valley metaphor that makes them, though they seem human enough, still not human enough, and they're just too real looking, but not real enough looking that it makes us feel all itchy inside? Whatever it is, dolls and horror go hand in tiny hand. And today, we're gonna get all dolled up, puns, and talk about one of the greats, Annabelle. Hey y'all, welcome to The Real Value, where we recap, review, rate, and evaluate all things real, all things watched. I'm Cal, your horror pal, and today we're gonna do another real telling, this time about the creation of one of our favorite creepy dolls, Annabelle, in Annabelle Creation. Pretty straightforward title there. Starring Stephanie Sigmund, Talitha Bateman, and Lulu Wilson, 2017's Annabelle Creation is a supernatural horror film directed by David F. Sandberg and written by Gary Dauberman, who also wrote another feature we've discussed and linked, 2018's The Nun. Annabelle Creation is the fourth installment in the Conjuring universe, but as of right now, number 2 on the official timeline, having taken place in between The Nun and The Nun 2, primarily in 1955. Annabelle Creation was released in the US in the summer of 2017 and grossed a worldwide box office of $306 million on a $15 million budget. Cha-ching. Needless to say, the Conjuring universe is a cash cow, though its main namesake is set to end this September with The Conjuring 4. Yeah, we'll see if the inevitable millions it's going to make changes any of that or not. Other people's ratings and reviews for the film have been fair, with it holding at a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter and a 68% on their popcorn meter. On Letterboxd, it has a 3.0 out of 5, on IMDb a 6.5 out of 10, and on the movie database, it sits at a 66%. But what's the real value of the flick? Come on, you know by now you gotta wait till the end of the video to find out its truest of all and realest of the real ratings. The real value. Yeah, we'll get to that later. The premise of Annabelle Creation is as such. 12 years after the tragic death of a doll maker's daughter, Annabelle, the doll maker Samuel Mullins and his wife Esther open up their home to a nun and several girls from a shuttered orphanage. However, they soon become the targets of the doll maker's possessed creation, Annabelle. Same name? We'll explain. The film follows a young orphan, Janice, who, after discovering a forbidden room, unwittingly releases a powerful demon that begins to terrorize the group. Now, without further ado, let's get to our real telling of 2017's Annabelle Creation. Needless to say, but spoilers start now. All right, our film opens up on a doll maker creepily making a creepy doll in his creepy doll shed, although none of it's supposed to be creepy, he's just making toys. Now, here's where we take our first detour, because if you weren't aware, Annabelle is a real toy that is thought to be haunted in the real world, in real life. The Conjuring universe is loosely based on true events. Take that as you may. But the Annabelle doll is a real thing. However, it looks way less creepy in real life, as it looks more like a Raggedy Ann type doll thingy. So I find it hilarious that the makers of these films were like, no, we can't use that thing, and so set out to use what we all now see as the Annabelle doll, which is so fucking creepy that even the picture the doll maker is using as a guide to be the doll in this film is fucking creepy, that you're like, what the fuck, dude? Make that shit less creepy, please. All right, I don't think I can use word creepy anymore in this flick, but you get my drift. Anyways, the creepy doll maker continues to make his creepy little toy, and brands it 1 of 100 limited edition, something that makes sense if you've seen the movie Annabelle, which we might get to later on in this series. As the doll maker is making his toy, someone or something slips a note under his door and then scurries away real fast. The note says, "Find me." Clearly, this is his daughter who just wants to play. We see the doll maker, whose name is Samuel, by the way. His shed is not too far away from their house, which is just lovely. I wish I had a home with a wraparound porch like that. Manifest! The doll maker continues to follow the clues, the little notes she's leaving him, like breadcrumbs to find her. But she sucks at hide and seek because she's clearly hiding behind the curtain in the living room. Hello, do better. kids. The dad, Samuel, does a little trickaroo and comes up behind her instead, leaving his own note saying, "Found you," before we get our first jump scare of the movie, courtesy of the father and daughter shenanigans. It's cute. It's playful. Oh, this family must love each other so much. Blah! Later, the mom tucks in her little one who asked to leave her record playing while she sleeps, and it plays some creepy, not creepy, it plays some off-putting, old-ass, old-timey, old musica. The next scene shows them all walking out of church as a family. Samuel is then asked about whether his dolls are finished by a fellow townsman. So apparently he's a renowned toy maker in this town. And they're like, yeah, they're finished. We'll bring them over later this week. Unfortunately for the family, while on their way home, they suffer a flat tire and the dad is changing said tire. And a car is coming in the distance. And I think you know what's about to happen. And if you don't, that's okay. They didn't either. Too soon? So in the distance, like in the far away distance, this car is coming up pretty fast. They even know it's coming because the wife is like, "Hey, should we flag them down?" And the dad's like, "Nah, I got it." But a lug nut falls off and into the road. And then Annabelle, of course, is like, "I'll get it." And boom, she is literally made into roadkill after that. But honestly, that driver was driving too freaking fast and too freaking close. Like, if you watch this, you're like, God damn, slow down. What are you doing? So that driver, you know, that he probably should have got manslaughter charges, because that wasn't just an accident. That was reckless driving, in my humble opinion. Ridiculous. We then get our title card, Annabelle Creation. Cut to 12 years later, so it's about 1955, and we see a cross in the road signifying that Annabelle died there that day. Up pulls a bus from the St. Eustace Home for Girls, and we meet Linda and Janice, who are sitting together along with some other girls on the bus. These girls on the bus are orphans, and it's clear that these two, Janice and Linda, are close friends. They even make a pact that if someone wants them, they're gonna get both of them, which I'm pretty sure is not how adoption works. The bus driver, a priest, warns the head nun leader lady of the girls not to fret if they don't see Mrs. Mullins, Esther, much, because she was in an accident years ago. We'll undoubtedly circle back to that in a little bit. So the Mullins, now 12 years later, after their little girl has died in that accident, have decided to open up their home to these orphan girls and the head nun lady to live in whilst they find homes of their own. Basically, their orphanage shut down and they're opening up their home so they all have a place to stay before they all get split up into, well, hopefully they get adopted. That's the end goal, right? Samuel, the doll maker, is clearly still broken from losing his daughter all those years ago. As they all get out of the bus, we see that one of them, Janice, has polio and is using a crutch to walk. The nun, the sister, tells Mr. Mullins she won't be a burden, however, which I was like, damn, that's, you know, hard. Of course she won't, right? Like, okay, she has polio, whatever. Yeah, the 50s. Samuel then takes the girls around the huge house. They're all excited. They're like, "Oh my God, this place is so big. It's so beautiful. It's like a castle, blah, blah, blah." And they run around and they're looking at stuff, etc., etc. Samuel tells them their rooms are upstairs, to which the nun is like, "Dude, Janice can't walk." And he's like, "Check this out, sister." And he turns on the stair lift and a little chair comes down on a little electric stair thingamabobby, and Janice gets on that and starts riding that all the way up. Now, I don't know why they wait until Janice is all the way up to the top of the staircase by herself before they decide to meet her, but before that, off to the right of Janice, down the hallway, we see a shadowy figure walking by that eerily looks like a child. Of course, Janice takes notice and is like, "What the fuck?" before everyone else rushes up the stairs to meet her. So Janice, while searching for her own room, comes across a door that Samuel says they mustn't go in. This is, of course, Annabelle's old room, his daughter's old room. So her and Linda bunk up by themselves in a room to the left. We then cut to the sister, the head nun, whose name is Charlotte, Sister Charlotte, finding a dumbbell waiter in the room she's staying in. It's kind of broke, so I wonder if that'll come into play later. They're leaving it all out, like notes, like the little girls leaving notes. They're leaving it all, it's like breadcrumbs. They're leaving out notes, okay? The girls then all decide to go exploring, but Janice stays back because of her polio. Linda then offers to stay with her, but Janice is like, "You promised not to treat me differently." And then so Linda's like, "Okay, see ya," which made me laugh out loud.
Okay. See ya.
She just goes from like, I'll stay with you if you want to. Okay, see you later. Like real fast. Janice then walks to the window and sees the girls all running outside and immediately feels bad, right? She got polio. She can't run and play like the rest of the girls. But her bedroom door behind her starts closing. And once again, we see the silhouette of a little girl. And the girl starts creeping closer and closer and closer to Janice until nothing. She disappears. But Janice turns around and her crutch is there. Her crutch has moved, like across the room. WTF, strike one for me. While at dinner, Samuel says a prayer before they eat, but while doing so, a bell is being rung like in the background, which I could barely hear at first. All I saw were all the girls looking around like he was being weird for praying, but I was like, you're all from a Catholic orphanage. You literally have a sister with you. So once I turned the volume up and I heard the bell ringing in the background, I was like, oh, that makes way more sense. The bell ringing in the background is his wife, who doesn't get out of bed, out of her room, and she's ringing for him to come and, whatever, serve her, give her something. Samuel then gets up to attend to his wife while they eat. And one of the girls gets a glimpse of Esther in the room before he closes the door, and it's all creepy. I mean, it's all weird-like. Then we cut to Janice and Linda praying before bed while the head sister watches. It's then nighttime and everyone is asleep except for Janice, who can't seem to fall asleep. She then hears some noises and boom, we get a note under the door that says, can you guess? Can you guess what it says? It says, find me. And she's like, what? But then she goes to do so. So it looks like Annabelle wrote it, right? It says, find me. She then opens the door and she sees another note being slipped from inside of Annabelle's own old room. But how? But what? It was locked, but now not so much. And the note says, in here. And then we hear the door unlocking itself. Excuse me? Strike two. But Janice goes in, of course. In the room, she finds one of those little doll houses that's like a replica of their own house, which I will say is kind of cool. She's looking in the dollhouse and she sees the room that she's currently in and notices a closet door out of which pops a key. So then she looks around in the real room and notices where that closet door is. So she takes the key. She walks open to the closet door, opens the closet door. Can you guess who's just sitting there all by itself inside? Without a care in the world? Yeah. It's the doll. It's the Annabelle doll. That's not Annabelle yet, but it's the doll that, or is it? Is it yet? It's the doll. It's the creepy doll that the doll maker Samuel made for his daughter. But it's just sitting by itself. This movie isn't too surprising, I will say. It's one of those where you see everything that's coming. So like, you know what the notes are going to say. You know the notes are going to be a reoccurring theme. You knew that the doll was going to be in the closet. You're calling out everything before it happens. But it's just sitting there all looking scary and shit. The kid closes the door, but the door then pops open. She closes it again, pops open. She closes, locks it, pops open. That's strike three for me. Like, get the F out of the house. I don't care. We can also see that the closet doors and the walls inside the closet are covered with papers that look like pages from the Bible. So they're just everywhere, all around that closet, surrounding the doll. But she locks it again. Then it pops open. So she takes a blanket to throw over the doll's head, which I'm like, bro, they're going to know you were in there. But she does that. And it just looks hella more scary with a blanket draped over it like it's some freaking ghost. But Janice walks to the window and she sees Samuel walking from his toy shed where he used to make his toys and stuff. And he's looking up and he notices someone in the window. It's Janice. He doesn't know it's Janice, but he's like, what the hell? So he's now rushing back into the house and she's freaking out. So Janice runs out of the room trying to get away. And before she does so, the blanket starts walking towards her. And with each step that the blanket that the figure is coming towards her, the blanket is falling off step by step by step until it falls off and then nothing's there. And I'm like, get the fuck out. I don't think so. That's it. It's all I need to see. Bye-bye, never coming back. She just runs into her room, goes to sleep. I don't think so. I'm gone. Never setting foot in there again. But Janice makes it back to bed and pretends like she's sleeping while Samuel's looking around like, what the fuck? What the fuck? It cuts back to the closet, however, and the doll is no longer there. Cue the upside down cross, and Great omen, right? The next day, the kids are all outside, and the oldest ones trick Linda into playing hide and go seek, which they do not intend to go find her, but Linda runs off to hide. We cut to Janice confessing her sins to the sister, that she feels bad about going into the room she wasn't supposed to go into, and she tries to tell her about the strangeness that occurred there, but the nun is like, dude, don't ruin this for us. Basically, we have nowhere else to go. They welcomed us into their home. You need to think about your actions and how they affect other people before you go through with them. So she didn't really get to tell her about the part where the doll figure blanket thing crept up to her and then all of a sudden draped off and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how you don't get that out, but she basically is like, don't do that anymore. And say 3 Hail Marys and help me unpack or whatever. While Linda is hiding from the other girl, she stumbles upon a secret little room under the staircase and she goes exploring, so this is gonna end well. The girls outside find the shed where the doll maker once used for his toy maker place, and they see a scary little scarecrow there just hanging on the wall when the oldest girl tries to scare them like he's talking to her, so wonder if that'll come back around in the picture. Breadcrumbs, man, just laying them out. Just laying them out for us to see. Come on, filmmakers, be a little bit more mysterious. Cut back to Linda hiding under the stairs when she starts to hear noises. Sounds like something breathing hard, and what does she find? Oh, it's just Annabelle sitting there creepily in the corner with a demon that we all know as, I think it's Methuselah. Methuselah behind it, like we've seen in Annabelle, in the first Annabelle movie, if you remember that, and then holding up. It's one of the coolest shots in movie history. It was so awesome when the doll raised and he's just holding it there. I love it. I love it. I love it. But anyways, in this one, it's similar. The doll's sitting there and Methuselah, it's either Malthusa or Methuselah. I'm gonna be calling it Malthuselah. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Sorry. But Malthuselah is sitting there in the background, right? It looks pretty cool. And then all of a sudden he rips the doll back into the darkness. And of course that causes Linda to scream and fall back out of the staircase as soon as the other girls walk in. And they're like, oh, you're horrible at hiding. Girls, man, y'all be cruel. Y'all be cruel. Oh, you're horrible at hide and seek. You're not very good at this. Like, damn, dude. But Linda tells no one about it. She's just like, well, okay. I wonder what that was about. We then see Samuel fixing the dumbwaiter for the sister to keep the draft down. He then picks up a picture that the sister has on her bedside table of some nuns from some convent of cloistered nuns in Romania. Wonder what that's about. Watch my real telling over The Nun if you haven't yet. Thanks. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, the picture shows the demon nun Valak just chilling to the side of the other nuns, just like, what's up? I was here too. Like, what? And Sister Charlotte's like, oh, I never noticed her there before. Like, excuse me? We then cut back to nighttime where everyone is asleep except the 2 older girls who are playing around and telling each other ghost stories and such under a blanket in the middle of the room. They're talking shit about Esther, Samuel's wife. She just stays in her own bedroom. So, they're just being teenage girls, being bitches, bitches, until they start to hear a noise and it's the bell ringing, but no one is answering the bell. So they're like, what the hell? And then their flashlight goes out and then they hear some creaking noises and see a shadowy figure behind the blanket and they hear it ringing the bell and it's getting closer and closer and closer to them until it's gone. Or is it? And then a hand reaches in and takes one of them by the face. It's a pretty freaky moment, actually. And we see a scary ass white porcelain face as it grabs them before one of the other girls in the room quickly turns on the light and like, what y'all doing? And their screams, of course, wake everyone up. And they're like, it was your wife. It was your wife. Your wife was in the room. And Samuel's like, my wife hasn't been able to walk for years. I don't know what you're talking about. The demon is messing with him a little bit. So it's the next day and the 2 older girls are noticeably still a little freaked out, hadn't shaken it off yet. Janice asks them if they're okay while Samuel drives off into town for something. But the oldest one was like, yeah, we're fine. We just scared ourselves. It's no biggie. Back inside, Esther is ringing her bell, but Samuel's gone. So Sister Charlotte goes in and Esther asks her for some water. We then see Janice roaming around the house again and listening in on their conversation. She peeks in and we see Esther's reflection in the mirror wearing her mask before she takes it off to drink some water. Janice then hears about how Annabelle was taken from them at a young age. So she kind of gets the story that they lost their daughter. They had a daughter, they lost the daughter. She then sees a picture of Annabelle with her doll hanging on the wall in the hall. She see a picture of her and her doll hanging on the wall in the hall. Her and the doll hanging on the wall in the hall. Her and the doll hanging on the wall in the hall. Her and the doll hanging on the wall in the hall. I had a lot of caffeine today. I apologize for nothing. She's staring at it and she's starting to connect the dots a little bit. Like, oh, I was in Annabelle's room. Was it Annabelle trying to reach out? Was it Annabelle talking to me through the doll? With the doll? So later, Janice is looking at the picture of the doll when the eyes of Annabelle start to glow. And I'm like, but why though? Like, are you serious, demon? What are you doing? Don't give it away too easy. Then we hear that same old weird ass old timey music that was from the beginning of the movie when Annabelle wanted her record to be playing while she was going to sleep. We hear that coming from her room again. And so what happens? We show Janice is standing outside the door because I guess there's no other option, right? Like, just go to bed, girl. But no, Janice goes in the room and the record is still playing and she stops the record, but behind her, Linda walks in and Annabelle is sitting on the bed straight up, like gross. Why? And they're just like, oh, that must be normal. Someone just must have put it there. Like, you just saw that thing underneath the stairs, Linda, that got grabbed by the demon. Like, what are you doing? Just being so casual about it. And then Janice is all like, oh, there's the doll. It was in the closet that I thought I left it in the closet, but no, it's just sitting there on the bed. I'm out. I'm gone. Instead, Linda's like, ooh, look, a kaleidoscope, and starts fucking with a kaleidoscope. Janice then tells Linda about the daughter, Annabelle, and Linda accidentally hits Annabelle with a toy and says the smartest thing anyone could say, which is, why are we in here? We should leave. Like, yeah, yes, good girl. But Janice is like, no, for whatever fucking reason. And they look back at Annabelle and she's looking right at them. Like, get the fuck out. You're out of strikes at this point. Linda smartly does get the fuck out. But Janice is like, I'll leave in a minute. And starts going through Annabelle's old diary, which, abruptly ends. But she keeps flipping the pages until she gets to one page that says, Dear Diary, today I came home. Anyways, the door then shuts because, demon magic. And then all of a sudden some puppets pop out and start doing a little puppet show. And Janice is like, oh, let me just walk on over to check that out because the polio's got into her fucking brain, I guess. And she checks behind there, but there's no one behind there and the puppets just drop. But then the lights in the little dollhouse come on and she's still like, well, let me check that out because what the fuck, bro? How many signs do you need? But the demon, I guess, is trying to make her feel like it's Annabelle, the daughter, trying to communicate with her. And when she looks up, she actually sees the figure of Annabelle at the window, just kind of tapping on the window. And she's walking up to Annabelle. Annabelle's like, I need help. And she's like, what can I help you with? What do you need? And then Annabelle turns around and her face is all demonified and she's like, your soul! And she lunges after her and she scratches her. So Janice starts to scream, runs out of the room, shuts the door behind her. She's all freaking out. All these doors in the hallway are closing. The hallway lengthens by demon magic and she's trying to go downstairs in the stair lift, but it won't work. And then the demon Malthuselah turns into smoke and comes out of Annabelle's room. And then the stair lift starts to work after she buckles it, but she only gets halfway down and then it starts to go back up. So she's freaking out. And I'm like, where are the other 8 people in this fucking household? Like, where is everybody? No one hears this. And so it's going back up the stairs and Janice can't stop it. And at the end of the hallway, she sees Annabelle waiting at the top of the stairs. And then she looks away, and then she looks back and Annabelle's gone and there's nothing there, but she gets up to the top of the stairs and she's just sitting there. And then boom, the demon lifts her up into the air and we see a shoe drop and then boom, Janice hits the ground hard. Cut to the next day and Janice is now in a wheelchair after coming home from the doctor and they're all like, you good? And she like, not really. So the sister is like to the other girls, y'all be nice to her. And they're all like, okay. Janice going through a rough time. Once back inside, Janice is like, look, sister, we can't stay here. And she's like, what? There's nowhere else for us to go. But Janice is like, listen, there's evil here. I feel an evil presence and it's going to come after my soul because I'm the weakest. And the sister's like, nah, girl, you're the strongest one because it ain't about flesh. It's about faith. And you have stronger faith. And so you're going to be okay. So she's not really listening to her, but she's kind of listening to her. But I mean, what are you going to do? I don't know. These sisters and Catholics are supposed to believe in these demons, right? But I think when you're face to face with it, it's like, I don't know, is there really a demon here or is this girl just being a girl? Or boy. Boy can be a boy too. You know what I mean? Like, they're just kids. Kid minds. Cut to the nighttime, and Samuel is carving some wood in his room with his wife, and they're just talking about how it might have been a mistake to bring these girls in here, and that maybe something else was responsible for Janice's fall. But the wife's like, it's been quiet for 12 years. Maybe we need to welcome these girls in with open arms instead of frightening them away. And so, blah, blah, blah. She's like, it was just an accident, bro. But Samuel, he kind of knows better. Janice is now laid up on the couch downstairs talking to Linda about orphan stuff, and they have a little moment and blah, blah, blah. Sister calls Linda upstairs to bed, and Linda's like, I don't want to sleep alone, so they swap dolls all lovey-dovey and shit, whatever. And they say goodnight and blah. On her way back upstairs, Annabelle's old room unlocks for Linda, and Linda's like, I don't know, man, but creeps up to it anyway and hears some rocking inside, and is like, what the fuck? And so she bends down and looks through the keyhole, and she sees Annabelle just rocking in a rocking chair, so she starts to open the door, and she does so, but when she looks, the doll is gone. Not in the rocking chair anymore. What are we doing? What are we doing still in the house? So now she's all in her room standing guard with this toy gun that has a little ball that pops out with a string attached to it after she shoots it. So she shoots that into the blackest hallway on earth. Like, it's just like a black hole of a hallway, and reels it back in before reloading it to do it once more for whatever reason, just to antagonize the demon or whatever. But of course, when she does it the second time, it gets caught as she's reeling it back in, and she starts to hear some nasty noises, and the string lifts higher and higher and higher up, like whatever it has is 9 fucking feet tall, and it won't let that shit go. And so the gun is then wrestled quickly from her hand, and she hears running footsteps coming to her before she crawls up in bed, but leaves the door open and just like looking over the bed frame like, oh, what's out there? And the lights go out, and then she hears something, runs in the room and jumps on the bottom bunk. So she can't see it, but she sees the footsteps left behind that led into the bed. So Linda's freaking out, and she looks over into the crack on the side of the bed, and she sees Annabelle, and then Malfusela's fucking demon hand grabs the doll for some reason. She stays there. She stays there on the bed. I mean, I guess she's paralyzed with fear, right? She can't move, but she hears growling. So she's just staying there, and somehow she falls asleep, and then it's morning, and she wakes up, and she's like, oh yeah, there was a demon underneath me. So she looks, and it's gone. So Sister Charlotte then takes Janice outside and sets her in the sunlight for some positive vitamin D. And Janice is like, this does feel nice, actually. But the bell rings, so Sister Charlotte goes after it because Samuel's not home. And while she's soaking in the sun and looking at the kids off in the distance, something starts to hit her chair. And before she knows it, something's pushing her in her chair into the toy maker's old den, flips her out of the chair. She lands hard in the shed, and things start moving and shaking and rumbling. And we see a wardrobe shaking violently, and she's hiding under some rafter-like structure, but she hears some footsteps above her. And then all of a sudden she looks down, and it's Annabelle, the form of the kid, shuffling to her, and she gets to her, and she gets on top of her, and she vomits black bile into her mouth. And for the uninitiated in the Conjuring universe, this is usually a sign of how one is getting possessed by another one. So some piece of that entity is now in Janice. So the sister and Linda rush in after hearing her screams and is like, is everything good? What's happening? And Janice be like, oh, everything's great. Because clearly it fucking ain't. And Janice is no more. I mean, she's there, but she's not there. And Linda immediately noticed. She's like, no, something be off with you. So later on, Linda talks to the other girls about how Janice is being weird, and she brings up Annabelle, the kid, and that she wants to leave. And the oldest hears them talking about these ghosts and such, and is like, y'all just chill. We're just scaring ourselves here. That's all. I'm like, whatever. I'll leave. I'll go somewhere else. Peace out, y'all. I'll go be a orphanage that hitchhikes my way out of here because I am not staying in this house anymore. The next day, Linda is chilling on the porch when Samuel comes around the corner, and she sees a cross he's made, and he's like, you seem troubled. You good? And she's like, Janice is acting funny. And she begins to tell Samuel that she's seeing his daughter. And this, of course, strikes a nerve with Samuel. He's like, my daughter's been dead a long time. And she's like, I know, but Janice went into the bedroom. And he's like, Janice went to Annabelle's bedroom? And she's like, yeah, she knows she wasn't supposed to, but she found a doll. And Samuel's like, she found that fucking doll? You know, he goes from like 0 to 100, which he has the right to. But he's like, you must stay away from that doll, stay away from that room. And Linda's like, all right, bro. So Samuel immediately goes in the house and instantly knows something's up. And he starts to hear his daughter singing, sunshine, you are my sunshine. He's like, fuck. there's a demon in my house. So Samuel's creeping through the house. He hears this singing and he sees the doll, what will be the Annabelle doll, sitting at the dining table, and he creeps up to find a note on the table. And can you guess what the note says? Can you guess? Yeah, it says, "Found you," and then Janice wheels in and stands up and is clearly possessed and starts transforming into the demon, Methuselah, and he tries to use the cross that he made against the demon, but the demon's too powerful now and starts bending his fingers backwards and bending it all. It's just so gross, and all we hear are screams. And so Sister Charlotte and the kids are back from shopping. They hear the screams, and so she walks in to find Samuel's dead body and is like, WTF. Later that night, we see them take his body away, and Sister is like, y'all go to bed, I need to talk to Miss Mullins. But Janice stays on the porch with that creepy ass Annabelle doll just chilling on her lap. Cut to Janice asleep on the couch with the Annabelle doll at her feet. Linda just staring at her like, what the fuck is going on? So Janice takes the doll because she's going to try to get rid of it because she knows it's bad juju. So she goes outside. She makes her way to the farm's well, and the sister sees her from her room through the window. So she goes after her. So as Linda takes the doll to the well, she senses a presence behind her. So as she's hurrying. She tried to get there fast. She removes the well's lid and proceeds to throw the doll overboard. But the sister's like, what are you doing? Just as she's about to drop it, Linda's like, this thing is evil. I gotta get rid of it. And so she drops it. Linda hears a noise. So she looks back over the well, and then something grabs her. And then the sister sees these hands that are grabbing her, like, what the fuck? So she puts the lid back on, and then the lid starts to bang up and down. So they're both freaking out now, running back to the house. They get back in the house, and Linda's like, I got rid of the doll. I got rid of the doll, Janice. Look, and she pulls the covers back out, but it's the fucking doll. So now the sister know something ain't right either. Janice be missing, however, so the other girls hear some screams, and the sister is like, fine, Janice. And she takes the doll into Miss Mullins' room, and Miss Mullins immediately starts freaking out, like, get that shit away from me. And sister's like, tell me what is happening. So Mrs. Mullins is like, it's back. I knew it was back, which... no, you did not, bitch. You did not know it was back. You were like, oh, it was just an accident. Like Samuel, your husband, was like, hey, I think it might not have been the accident. So anyway, she proceeds to tell her tale. So basically, after Annabelle died, their daughter, they admit that they prayed to whatever entity that would bring her back, they would give their full devotion to. So, you know, that was smart. And to whatever power would allow them to see her again, they would sell their souls to, pretty much. And it started off small. They started hearing signs. They heard her around the house, but then it got bigger and bigger to where they could actually see her. But really, it was just the demon Methuselah tricking them into thinking it was their daughter Annabelle, but their daughter Annabelle was gone. So it was just taking the form of Annabelle. And then it basically tricked them into letting it move inside the doll or around the doll, using it as a conduit. And it became stronger and stronger because of this. And eventually, Esther, Mrs. Mullins, sees the demon in a reflection one night and starts to freak out. So she takes a cross like Samuel tried to do later on and points it at the demon, and the demon starts to shift and shake and takes out her eye. So when Samuel got home and saw this, they eventually get a priest to come over. They sealed the doll away in that closeted room, surrounding it by Bible verses, and they blessed it and they kind of locked it away. And for 12 years, it had been quiet until these girls arrived. So that's the official creation story of how the doll became possessed or became a conduit for Methuselah. But our story here isn't over yet. So as the girls look for Janice, they find her in Annabelle's old room playing tea party with Annabelle. And all of a sudden she gets up and she's walking around, and they're like, what the fuck? She's walking, but she has a knife. And then we hear a scream and we see them running down the stairs, and Janice cut one of them with the knife. So now they're all freaking out. And so we hear a bell ring again. Sister goes upstairs, and then it shows the kids going to Mr. and Mrs. Mullins' room. But Mrs. Mullins is no more. She's now hanging on the wall crucified, and her body is torn in fucking half, yo. It is gone. So demon got her. Sister then gets Linda and the girls, but Janice corners them with the knife. And as the sister starts praying, she gets lifted into the air by the demon. So that's fun. Then she's thrown against the mirror and they all run away, but Linda gets dragged back into the room. And in one of the coolest lines ever, Linda's like, go get help to one of the kids. But Janice walks out possessed with the knife, and she's like,
get help! Or you could help me.
which I just thought was great. I thought that was kind of a cool line. The kid runs off though. She's like, no, I'm not helping you. And they run out of the house and they try to get into the truck to drive away, but the truck dies. But guess who starts to move outside in front of the truck? Good old Mr. Scarecrow. That's just laying against the farmhouse. And then in a flashlight, it's gone. So yeah. coming back around, these breadcrumbs coming back around. We flash back to Linda hiding in the house. She finds the dumbwaiter. Yep, we made it there too. And she climbs in the dumbwaiter, go back to the farmhouse, and lo and behold, the scarecrow is in the farmhouse now. And Carol, the older kid, gets locked in there, but there's an axe between her and the scarecrow, so she goes to get the axe, but the axe breaks, and all of a sudden, all these lights are going out around her, and she's looking at the scarecrow, and the scarecrow starts to move, and the demon is filling up the scarecrow's body, which is pretty flippin' cool in all honesty. And it rips the scarecrow's face off, but each light is going out one by one, and Carol tries to keep the last one from going out by grabbing a ladder and twisting it back in. She succeeds, but then the demon appears on the roof and grabs the light bulb and crushes it, and then it descends like a bat from the roof, which is fucking awesome, while Carol runs away. She then locks herself in the next room, which I guess is like connected to the toy shed thing that Sam used to use, and the door is just getting beaten on, but one of the kids lifts one of the windows and is like, here, and she slips through that window back outside. Flashback to Linda pulling herself down the dumbwaiter slowly because it's all broke as hell while Janice tries to get her. So this is where I get a little confused. So there's a little bit of the demon entity in Janice, but it's also out there messing with the other kids. So I guess this demon has the power to be in several different places at once. And it's interesting because the demon Valak also does that. Like if you watch my retelling of The Nun, which if you haven't, please do like, share, and subscribe. It does that to Frenchie, right? It puts a little of its essence in Frenchie while the rest of it gets sealed away again. So these demons seem to have the power to be able to be in several different places at once. Kind of like, I guess, Voldemort, how he separated his soul into the Horcruxes? You know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. It's kind of fuzzy on that part. So Linda has made it all the way down in the dumbwaiter, which comes out in the bedroom of the Mullins. And there's a flashlight next to the dumbwaiter. So she gets that, and she's kind of like pointing the flashlight around, and Miss Mullins is no longer hanging on the wall, or what's left of her is on the floor, and then all of a sudden it moves and it starts going after her, so she climbs back in the dumbwaiter rather quickly and tries to pull herself up again. But she gets stuck in the dumbwaiter, looks over the edge to see the demon in Annabelle form coming after her. She hits it with a flashlight and starts to climb up the rope to get out of the dumbwaiter shaft. She makes it out of the dumbwaiter and closes it just in time. As she backs away from it, looks around the room, everything is blacked out, but she's looking for Sister Charlotte or anyone. So she's walking through the house alone. She hears some noises sounding like bouncing, and it's Janice at the bottom of the stairs with the knife and the doll that she gave her, Sweet Sue, and she says, oh, it looks just like you, while she's stabbing it. So she runs back into Annabelle's old room and hides in the closet we first saw the doll locked away in. And the doll is back in there again. So Janice is in there looking for Linda. Linda goes to move the doll's head from looking at her. Just as Janice finds her, throws her out of the closet and is about to stab her when Sister Charlotte shows up, has the doll in her hands, and is like, Janice! And so Janice turns around. Janice gets up to stab her, but stabs the doll instead, but it's all misdirection as Sister Charlotte places a rosary and cross around Janice's neck and says, forgive me, before throwing her in the closet with all the Bible verses sealed away and the doll, and they're just screaming to be let out, and the house starts to shake. The record comes on and plays that creepy, weird-ass music. The lights flicker, things start flying around. The two finally run out of the house downstairs, get out of the house as everything shakes and rumbles and all the lights explode and the house goes dark. And then we hear the telltale signs of things pretty much being over as sirens blare in the background. They had called the cops earlier to come, so the cops are coming. I left that part out. But the cops get there, they search the house. There's no sign of Janice. All there is in that closet is a hole where she broke through, apparently, where her, as the demon, broke through. The next day, we see the cop tell the sister that there's still no sign of the girl, but she's like, how far could she have gone? And then we see a priest come out of the house and say it's blessed. He also has the Annabelle doll with him that says, this was just a conduit for the evil, but the evil is now gone. So who wants it? And all the kids are like, I don't want that fucking thing. And then they're shown all driving off from the farm, back in the bus. Sister asks Linda if she's okay. She's like, I'm holding up. And the Sister Charlotte's like, you know, that wasn't really Janice back there. That was something else. And she's like, I know. And we see the bus full of kids and the sister just drive off into whatever life they're going to have. We then cut to a new orphanage where two parents, just two random parents, Mr. and Mrs. Higgins, are looking to adopt a child. They're introduced to a kid that's said to pretty much keep to herself. She's usually quiet. and it is Janice. But when they go up to Janice, she introduces herself as Annabelle, and they adopt her. And they brought with her a present, and it's a doll. But what kind of doll is it? It's the real Annabelle doll, at least what the real Annabelle doll in real life looks like, which I thought was a nice nod, filmmakers. A+ on that one. And they're like, I hope you like dolls. And she takes the Annabelle doll, and she's like, So yeah, of course she likes dolls. She's the freaking demon Methuselah. So they all smile and laugh, and then it flashes forward another 12 years later, and Annabelle has come back home after being gone for some time. She had joined a cult, apparently, and she and her boyfriend murder her adoptive parents, who screams, wake up the neighbors next door, John and his wife, which leads into the Annabelle movie. So just like The Nun kind of left off and led into the Conjuring movie, this one leads into the Annabelle movie, and we cut to credits. But interestingly enough, in this movie, there's a mid-credit scene where it's basically just a close-up of the doll Annabelle sitting in that closet, and it zooms in, and right before it cuts away, its head moves slightly. So, you know, Methuselah's still in there somewhere, huh? And then at the very end of the credits, it cuts to a convent where in the distance, we see a demon nun, the demon nun, Valak, approaching. And this was, of course, to preview The Nun, which would be released a year after this movie. So again, watch my real telling of The Nun if you haven't yet. Like, share, and subscribe. Because this one came out in 2017 and The Nun came out in 2018. And folks, that's Annabelle Creation. So, overall, I think it was a fun movie. A lot of good effects and little scares. My only big gripe is that there was no mystery at all, which I suppose this was supposed to be kind of like a missing puzzle piece kind of film in the overall franchise that is the Conjuring universe. Because we already know, like, the doll was going to get possessed. We already know. It was basically how we got there, not what comes at the end. So these were just the missing pieces that filled in a little bit of the corners, you know, and such. You basically knew everything that was going to happen. When you see the girl throwing paper notes at the father at the beginning, you know the demon is going to use those against him. When you see the truck in the distance at the beginning of the movie, you know it's going to hit the girl. When you see the scarecrow, you know that'll make an appearance again. God damn it. When you see the scarecrow, you know that'll make an appearance again for a cheap scare. When you see the well, you know eventually they're going to throw or try to throw the doll down the well, etc., etc., etc. There's no mystery. There's no big surprise. And that, to me, is the funnest part of horror movies. That's why usually sequels don't work out too well, is because a big part of the mystery is gone. But overall, I had a good time with it, and I rank this one as a real good. It's not my favorite in the franchise, but it's a solid movie that connects the dots pretty well, in my opinion. 1.5 scaredy cows for atmosphere, and some of the shots and effects are real cool, but again, when you know it's coming, it's kind of hard to get scared by that. Otherwise, the kid actors were good, the cinematography was great. Again, a lot of cool effects and scares like that. But what did y'all think? How did this one stand up to the rest of the series in your eyes? Did you like it? Do you think it was too cheesy? Do you know how the demon can be in multiple places and bodies at the same time? Because that seems to be a major power of both Methuselah and Valak, which is pretty incredible, honestly. If you can have your essence in different places at the same time, that's crazy. Let me know in the comments below. So I did The Nun. I've now done Annabelle Creation. We're going to do them all in timeline order. So next up is The Nun 2. Stay tuned for that one. All right, that's it for me, folks. Remember to be nice to each other, and if you can't do that, at least don't be a dick. Peace. Thanks, Joey, for being a Patreon subscriber. Everyone else follow suit. Go to my Patreon at The Real Value.